Konnichi fucking wa lads, today I'm going to talk about everyone's favourite rock-type Pokemon trainer. No, dumbass, not Brock. I'm talking about Sisyphus and his best friend Baldy. So for those of you who don't know Sisyphus, he's quite a wily character within Greek mythology. He was the original king of Corinth and its founder, and cheated death twice in his life because Hades is a moody bastard.
Something the matter there, father? You seem a little quieter than usual. Dare I say, even a little somber and remorseful for some reason?
Silence, boy. Better yet, why don't you get out of my sight? I've more important things to do now than indulge your boastfulness. We'll have to catch up at some other place and time.
And honestly, who wants to die? Sisyphus was a bit of a cunt whilst he was alive, and as a result of his defiance of death, he's now spending eternity languishing in Hades, trying to do an impossible task, whilst engaging in some BDSM play with the lovely Fury sisters. His attempt to push the boulder up the hill is his final gambit at freedom, in a cruel, cruel deal he made with Zeus. As a fun fact for you, a Sisyphean task is a task that can never be accomplished, so you can learn things whilst watching YouTube videos. Who fucking knew? Definitely not your teachers in high school. As with all Greek mythology, quite a lot of authors have wrote their own versions, or fanfics, or doujins, or whatever the hell you want to call it. So the originals become quite muddled when you've got people like Plato, Strabo, and Homer all writing version. Because I only did a bachelor's degree in history, and for the sake of expediency, we're going to focus on the easier myth, which is the version wrote by Homer, the Homeric version. Sisyphus is the founder of Corinth, the great isthmus city that controls access to the Peloponnesus. As a king, he was based as fuck and very intelligent, but he was also a double-crosser, a bit of a cunt, and violated one of Zeus's key roles, Xenia. So he wasn't an all-round liked guy. He was so crafty, in fact, that Homer decided to call him the craftiest of all men. This is high praise from the person who wrote Odysseus. Upon Sisyphus' first death, Thanatos was sent to bind and capture him and drag him to Hades. This is unusual because actually Charon is the one who's supposed to meet you. Because he was such a cunt and Zeus hated him so much, Thanatos decided, yeah, no problem Z, I'll do it for you. Sisyphus, firstly confused at why the god of death was standing in front of him, asked Thanatos what he was doing firstly, and secondly, how Thanatos intended to take him towards hell. Thanatos demonstrated the chains to Sisyphus. Sisyphus asked how they worked and how they bound his soul and allowed Thanatos to drag him to hell. As a result of some very strange writing or some very, very sly persuasion on Sisyphus' part, take your pick, Thanatos demonstrated how the chains worked, and Sisyphus, being a sly fox, decided, I'm going to grab these, I'm going to slap them on you, Thanatos, and you're going to be bound forever. As a result, our airheaded salty pretty boy is now bound in the chains. This resulted in the prevention of all death on Earth. This irritated not only Zeus, because it defied the natural order of things, it also irritated Ares, because Ares, the god of slaughter, was enjoying slaughtering people, until the people he slaughtered were no longer being slaughtered because they couldn't die. Ares just wants to fucking break shit, and that's really hard when no one dies, so he really would not like a zombie apocalypse. As a result, Ares, exasperated, visits Thanatos and frees him, expressing his rage by calling him a fucking dumbass, asking how a god can be bound by a mortal, and then returning to killing shit in whichever part of the Aegean he saw fit. Sisyphus continued to live for some time. Prior to Sisyphus' second death, in a test of love, he asked his wife not to make offerings to the gods that were fit for a king upon his death, not to have a lavish funeral, but instead to desecrate his body and have it thrown naked into the street. He did this so as when he appeared at the river Styx for the boatman Charon, he would look destitute, desecrated, and humiliated. Not like a king at all. Because he had no way to pay the fare for the boatman, he would have to swim through the river Styx. Now if you've ever been to Asphodel, you know that river's pretty damn hot. As a result, when he appeared before Hades, he looked a bit like shit, and that's putting it nicely. Upon Sisyphus' audience with Hades, he attempted to persuade him to return back to Earth so that he could make the appropriate offerings. Hades though was like, fuck that cunt, so it failed. However, Hades' spouse, Persephone, was more compassionate and kind to his plight. She allowed him to return to the mortal world in order to make the appropriate offerings. Upon return, it is alleged that Sisyphus scolded his wife for not actually burying him properly. This is why he's a cunt. Now, Sisyphus promised to return to Hades once he'd finished, but why would you? He fucked off like Carl Gosen skipping bail. Thus, Sisyphus lived for the third time, having defied death twice. Meanwhile, Thanatos, who is supposed to collect him, refused to do so, having proved that he was a massive idiot getting bound by his own chains. He decided, fuck that, I'm not going near him. At this point, Zeus was really fucking irate. He decided to intervene. He didn't want any of the filthy mortals getting any funny ideas about avoiding Hades. So, he devised an especially long, tedious, and morale-crushing punishment, pushing a goddamn boulder up a hill. Now, the boulder was cursed to always return to the ground at the very cusp of the hill. Thus, Sisyphus' task was impossible. And this is where we see Sisyphus now. He is attempting to push the boulder up to win his bet with Zeus, failing repeatedly, and getting visited by the Furies who proceed to slap him around for a little bit. Sisyphus in reality is not a tragic tale. He was a very deceitful, cunning, and harsh ruler, not worthy of anyone's sympathy. Now in the game Hades, he's depicted as a kind, gentle, and friendly person that Zagreus has become friends with over his many escape attempts. This version is very different from the wily, strategically minded, and deceitful original king of Corinth. Sisyphus is noted as being the founder of the Isthmian Games, which contributed to the Olympic Hellenic Games. He captured Odysseus' grandfather, and serves as a warning not to fuck with the order of life and death, lest Zeus become really irate and unleash a trial of the gods. Sisyphus probably loves that Zagreus is doing what he spent his entire mortal life doing, fucking with Hades. As ever guys, tell me which character you want me to do next, subscribe, smash that motherfucking like button, ta-ra lads.